If you're a status quo liberal that's been on antipsychotics for the last 5 years, I have bad news. Racism's back on the menu. Oops, it's prevalent on the left and the right now. So it's an exciting time to be alive right now because I can make a video with this title, ranking Myers-Briggs based off of how racist they are, and things are probably going to be fine for me. Now, I know what you're thinking. Myers-Briggs, isn't that just astrology? And isn't astrology just space racism? Yes, that's the entire conceit of this video. I'm doing space racism at you to figure out how actually racist you are. I'm sort of looking at your physiognomy and just immediately judging you based off of what personality type you are. We're organizing things in terms of racist, not racist, and anti-racist, which is when you're so not racist, all you can think about is race. We're gonna start with the ISFJ. Pretty not racist. This is someone who is very concerned with the values and the time that they live in terms of the status quo. So the ISFJ, they get born, they look around at the community that they're in or the society that they exist in, and they adopt those values, like pretty much axiomatically. They're probably going to believe in meritocracy, colorblindness. Maybe they would even be more on the social justice warrior side of things, lean anti-racist. Very similar with the ISTJ. The ISTJ and the ISFJ are pretty much equal. I'm actually going to make the ISTJ slightly more racist. There's a world where this person would invest in racism to make their stocks go up, but they're so focused on the way that things have been that that doesn't seem like a good strategy for their investment portfolio. That's not the way things are done. I'm putting them here in today's current context, but if they existed when we had slaves, they would be getting triggered at you for talking about abolition. So ESFJ is pretty similar to the ISFJ, but they're so concerned about social cohesion. That's their whole thing. They're going to gossip about their friends. If anything, they would be picking up on someone who's being racist and then telling everyone, oh, you hear this guy's a racist? So, you know, again, there is the possibility that this sort of person gets born into a society where it's a more racist society or a more traditionalist society, a more reactionary society, and they would be more racist. But overall, I'd say this person, the ESFJ, is pretty not racist. So the ESTJ, their whole thing, efficiency. They're concerned about efficiency. This often takes the form of being like, you know, the top of whatever company that they're in. You give them a hierarchy, they want to climb it. But they're also very still focused on the status quo. So all these 4 types, they're all status quo types. And this guy is going to be like the most racist of the status quo types, because if anything gets in the way of him being at the top of the hierarchy that he's trying to go at, he's going to be upset about that. And so this is the sort of person that like diversity, equity, and inclusion would really bug, because it's not colorblind meritocracy. That's not the way that things should be done. And it's actually getting in the way of his bottom line for there to be diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. So this person would probably quietly complain about it, maybe go along with it just because like that's the way that things are done, but be sort of silently resentful that it's getting in the way of that efficiency. Next, we're going to move on to the ISTP. The ISTP, they're grilling, okay? They're simply grilling. They don't really care about these abstract concepts like racism. They just want to tinker around with their tools. They're not thinking about this stuff all that much. If they are thinking about it, and this goes with all of the types we're going to put in grilling, if they have opinions about this, it's from one of their friends. One of their friends told them what to think about something, and they're just like, okay, sure, I'll go with this. I don't really want to think about this that much. So the same goes with the ESTP. The ESTP, they're a Chad. All they want to do is go around. They have experiences, and you try to talk to them about racism. They're like, "What are you talking about? What is that? Why are we having this conversation?" They don't want to talk about that. They just want to chill. Same thing with the ISFP. The ISFP, you know, they just want to play their little music and hang out and, you know, have a good time, and they don't want to think about this kind of stuff. Again, that's not to say that the ESTP, if they're like a bully archetype, the ESTP can be a bully. Isn't going to break out some racism just to like put you down, win an argument or something. But you know, they're not normally the kinds of person that are going to do that. And if they do it, it's not a well thought out, like they're not having some racial realism coming out there. It's just kind of like they're just trying to be mean to you. The ESFP just wants to wear cool clothing and dress themselves nicely and walk down the runway. Okay, they're not thinking about racism. If any of these types interface with racism, it's because one of these types gave them an idea about it that made them think that's the way I should do things. Okay, moving on to the squarely not racist category. The ENTP is a good example of not racist. I think the ENTP is an interesting archetype because They love deconstructing frameworks. They love deconstructing, positions people have and ideologies. And so the ENTP is going to look at someone who's racist and be like, that's weird. Like, how are you arranging your thoughts about like such a vast array of people in such a specific way? How are you making such a strong judgment about that? So the ENTP is going to be very suspicious of the racists. They're probably also going to be suspicious of the anti-racists in the terms of that being its own framework in and of itself. So the ENTP is going to be pretty squarely not racist. They're going to be more interested in playing around with stuff of that nature. Now, of course, the ENTP is also the Joker archetype. And so you could imagine perhaps the ENTP just using racist sort of code words to trigger people or to get a reaction out of people in a sort of dark clown aesthetic. The ENTP is also the noticer archetype, so you can imagine them just like, walking around noticing, oh, I notice blacks do this. Oh, I notice Indians do that. I'm doing a J.J. McCullough accent because he is ENTP, and so it's kind of funny to imagine him just walking around and instead of like noticing parts of the society around him and making videos about it just being racist, ooh, an Indian. Okay, moving on to the pretty squarely racist category, I'm going to start with the INTJ. The INTJ is racist. If you're an INTJ, you're racist. Now, obviously, not all INTJs are racist, of course, but NJ, intuitive judging types, these guys are pattern-finding machines. That's what they specialize in. The NJ types are the opposite of the SP types. The SP types, they don't know how to pattern find. They're not very good at it. The NJ types, they come out of the womb, and they're noticing things. You can't stop them. The ENTJ is going to be very similar to the INTJ in the sense of how they conceptualize their pattern finding and racism, but both of these types are justifying it by being like, who's the best? Because the TJ types are all about getting to the top of a hierarchy. Thinking, judging types, they want to be the best, they want to be on the top. Whenever I bring up Myers-Briggs to a thinking, judging type, they're like, wait, which Myers-Briggs is the best? So these guys just want to be the best, and if they're pattern finding and being racist about it, chances are they're going to come to the conclusion that I'm the best. Whatever incarnation of me, that's the best. And then if they have a racist reaction, it's going to come from a sort of feelings-based gut response. But then because they're so disconnected from their feelings, these types, they're going to be wrapping that up in layers and layers of justification for whatever, why ever it is they had that feeling, and why their feelings about things are objectively correct. The ENTJ is the archetype of like, my people are the best and I will conquer the inferior people. The INTJ is more of a scheming, yes, we will conquer the inferior people. More from the background. This guy's like the shadowy advisor, this guy's like the king. Okay, moving on to the INFJ. The INFJ is even more racist. This might surprise you because Jesus was an INFJ. To which I say, Jesus, King of the Jews? No, but seriously, Hitler was an INFJ. INFJs are the most empathetic of the Myers-Briggs personality types, and the most kind of abstractly empathetic in the sense that they have like an idea of a person that is within their group. You can't have empathy without also having reverse empathy for the people who aren't in your in-group, which is to say, since I've been living in community, I've realized that my friends could probably like run over a kid and I wouldn't report them to the police. So Hitler, INFJ, he had a lot of empathy. Guy had maybe too much empathy for his people. And, having a strong empathetic desire to protect your people means inherently having an outgroup that you're going to be against. So these people have the potential to be the most racist. And racism isn't necessarily a logical thing. The thinking types, they're going to have to justify why it is they feel this way. The feeling types, they don't need the justification. They're just like, this is my group. The enemy group is going to die now. And, kind of the same thing with the ENFJ. Now, I will say both the INFJ and the ENFJ, they could be the most racist, but depending on what group they're a part of, like let's say the ENFJ is a part of an indigenous group, social justice group, a minority group, these are going to be the most anti-racist people, but it kind of horseshoes around anyway. So also, there's a possibility that the INFJ is more down here in the not racist category, but that's only if the INFJ's in-group is all of humanity, which is rare. You might say like, oh, Jesus' in-group was all of humanity. So that kind of framework, that makes sense for the INFJ. And if that was the case and they really did, view all of humanity in their in-group somehow, like many great schizo prophets have been, then they'd be more in the not racist category. INTP is an interesting one. The INTP's main problem is they're in their head. They're cerebral, they're thinking all the time, and their weak point is other people. They don't know what to do with other people. So in the modern context, online, this is going to make them more likely than not racist, but it really depends. The INTP is a wild card. The next few are all wild cards. The INTP is a pretty big wild card because it all depends on how they construct their internal framework of the world. Like, what do I think about this? And it doesn't really have much to do with the values of the society around them. And if it does have something to do with the values of the society around them, it's often just contrarian to those values, because that's how they interface with society. They're like, I don't like it, I'm going to do the opposite of it. In terms of INTP, by the way, H.P. Lovecraft was INTP, and don't ask the name of his cat. I'm going to tear this into a two-thirds. I'm going to put 3/4 of the INTP into the racist category, and the other 1/4 into the more not racist. Actually, yeah, I'll put them like somewhere leaning anti-racist. Okay, so the ENFP is a huge wild card. ENFPs, first of all, they're extreme and they're schizo. Kanye West is an ENFP. So the ENFP is all about their internal values, how they feel about things. And that's pretty like, that has nothing to do with what society thinks. So the ENFP could be the most racist person you've ever met, or the most anti-racist. But it's probably going to be on an extreme. And it's going to be leaning anti-racist most of the time. But like I said, Kanye West is an ENFP. So if their values are racism, then that's going to be like a pretty extreme racist. There we go. A third, like 33% chance racist, 66% chance anti-racist. Certainly won't be... They'll have an opinion about racism, is what I'm trying to say here. Okay, and then last we have the INFP. The INFP is very similar to the ENFP in the sense that they're a wild card, but it's going to be the same thing where it depends totally on their internal values, but they're a lot less extreme and schizo than the ENFP, so it's going to be just like more moderate. So I'm going to tear it in the same way. So what have we learned here? The NJ types, intuitive judgers, those are pattern finding machines. They're the most likely to be racist based off of the patterns that they find. The SPs are most likely to grill because they don't know how to find patterns, and they don't want to think about this topic at all. The SJ types want to maintain the status quo, and so they're probably going to be meritocratic, certainly not racist, leaning anti-racist if anything. Remember, Myers-Briggs is just space racism, so go forward with the space racism I've taught you today, and make sure to arbitrarily deem your friends racist or not racist based off of these arbitrary frameworks I've given you. Do you have any questions?
Make them all racist.
Yeah, so racism's back on the menu. It's back. There's political clout to be had in being racist. It's popular on all sides, whether you're anti-honky, I saw a buck breaking, I'm anti-honky, or if you're seeing other right-wing documentaries where they call people Ashkenazi Jews for half the documentary. So yeah, colorblind meritocracy's out. Racism's back in, and now you can use this space racism to type your friends and see how racist they are.